The role of Elon Musk behind Donald Trump's victory in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. The influence of the tech elite on American politics over the next 4 years. And the Ukraine war are topics that French weekly publications are particularly focused on this week. The cover story of the K International magazine discusses how, since Donald Trump was re-elected as President of the United States on November 0, international media has continuously paid attention to the world's most secretive figure, Elon Musk, the head of Tesla and SpaceX, who plays a significant role in helping the Republican candidate return to the White House. The American newspaper The New York Times reported that in most of the meetings held in recent days at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida, there was a man who had never won any election, had never participated in politics, and just a few months ago had no close relationship with Donald Trump. That man is Elon Musk. It cannot be denied that this billionaire has become the most powerful citizen in the United States. In mid-November, the future occupant of the White House did not hesitate to appoint Musk as the Secretary of Government Efficiency, responsible for reforming the government apparatus. However, Musk's influence extends even further. The American press emphasizes that in addition to Musk's rise, there is also a tech oligarchy seeking to assert its position in the United States before the upcoming presidential election. The Atlantic magazine has forecasted everything that is happening and analyzed the factors leading to the closeness between tech billionaires and Donald Trump. What they want is to leverage their relationship with the government to self-determine technology policies controlled by the state. The alliance of these billionaires with Trump is essentially a power struggle. In other words, this is not just a simple economic alliance to facilitate business operations, but a revolution aimed at changing or even abolishing regulations, whether in the fields of artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency, or space exploration, with significant risks of conflicts of interest, corruption, and concentrated power. The Atlantic's Franken lists a series of potential issues that could arise from this oligarchic regime. Just looking at a few numbers reveals the dependence of the US government on the major corporations in Silicon Valley. In 2023, Elm signed nearly 100 different contracts with 17 federal agencies worth $3 billion over the past 10 years. SpaceX and Tesla have signed contracts worth at least $15.4 billion with the federal government. Looking at these numbers, one can predict what will happen next. The Atlantic highlights that billionaires welcomed into the government will hold almost complete control over the strategic economic order, and forecasts that Donald Trump's second term will be marked by a return to transactional relationships characteristic of billionaire entrepreneurs. However, this phenomenon comes with many risks, as individuals driven by greed or zeal to fulfill a grand mission may emerge. The Atlantic is not the only magazine concerned about the ambitions of Silicon Valley billionaires. In Germany, the newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung has issued warnings about the models of extreme capitalism. The paper states that Trump's election is a confirmation for a significant number of major names in the tech industry regarding their vision of the world and the war in Ukraine. The editorial of the LP Weekly raises the question of whether World War III has already begun, at least. That is what Mr. Putin wants to assert on the 1000th day of the Ukraine war. The Russian president wants to emphasize that this conflict has taken on a global dimension after Washington gave the green light for Kyiv to use American-supplied long-range missiles to strike military targets in Russia in retaliation. Kremlin officials have threatened to target the military facilities of countries that supply weapons and aid to Ukraine, and thus European nations will face increasing risks on the front lines. Actions speak louder than words. President Vladimir Putin has officially adopted his revised nuclear doctrine, and has launched an attack on a weapons manufacturing plant in Ukraine using medium-range ballistic missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads. A nuclear threat from Russia that is both terrifying and absurd. However, it seems to be effective. The United States and Germany continue to actively support Ukraine militarily amid both countries undergoing a political transition. In the recent election campaign, Donald Trump emphasized that the West is recklessly escalating the conflict by prolonging the war. Interestingly, the billionaire's remarks align with the stance of the Kremlin. For his part, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz also wants to present himself as a pro-peace leader. seemingly hoping to avoid a significant defeat in the upcoming parliamentary elections scheduled for February 23 next year. The weekly newspaper TN highlighted that Vladimir Putin is distorting the truth. The war in Ukraine is clearly becoming a global conflict. However, it is the Kremlin's owner who has decided to recruit over 10,000 North Korean soldiers to support the Russian army on the battlefield. He is the one who has called on Iran and North Korea to engage in destabilizing activities in Europe, and both countries are also supplying weapons and ammunition to Russia for use in the Ukraine battlefield. Putin has also established a special alliance with China to gain additional solid support. According to the Financial Times, the Russian leader even secured an agreement with Houthi rebels in Yemen to recruit hundreds of fighters for the battlefield in Ukraine. However, Vladimir Putin's nuclear threats also indicate that the Russian military is struggling, forcing the Kremlin to recruit soldiers from North Korea because it is hesitant to mobilize more of its own troops. The Russian army continues to threaten the Donbas region but must pay a terrible price for it. The Russian economy is being sustained by large-scale arms production, which has led to significant disruptions in the supply chain. As Donald Trump prepares to return to the White House, Moscow and Kyiv may try to seek a diplomatic solution, with both wanting to negotiate from the most advantageous position possible during this highly sensitive time. European countries need to remain calm and not yield to the conclusions of the LP Clinic. If they want to prevent the conflict from spreading beyond Ukrainian territory and spilling over into the West, the only solution is to support Kyiv steadfastly by providing them with weapons and ammunition. Regarding the Ukraine war, attention should be paid to the aspect of Donald Trump's return to leadership in the United States, which could impact the course of the war after the billionaire has committed to quickly ending the conflict. Mr. Vladimir Putin has asserted his readiness to negotiate, but on his own terms, and his stance has become more rigid since Donald Trump's re-election as president. The Biden administration is in a difficult position. On one hand, Trump wants to cut aid to Ukraine, while on the other hand, China and North Korea are increasingly actively involved in the conflict, raising concerns about the potential formation of an anti-Western alliance. Since September, U.S. officials have begun to suspect China's role after revelations about Moscow and Beijing collaborating to develop a secret weapons program. Additionally, the presence of North Korean troops in Europe has been a major surprise, although Western officials have tried to downplay the significance of this event, stating that it indicates Russia is becoming fatigued. Recently, President Zelensky remarked that if Ukraine negotiates with Putin in the current context, Kyiv will be at a disadvantage in the talks, as the Biden administration is seeking to change the situation before Trump announces his candidacy. This includes providing Ukraine with an additional military aid package worth $6 billion and allowing the country to use ATACMS missiles. The weekly magazine, The Economist, suggests that this decision is not aimed at changing the course of the war but holds significant symbolic importance, demonstrating strong support for Ukraine. Currently, all attention is focused on Donald Trump, who could be the key figure in promoting a peace agreement if the billionaire reaches a deal between the two sides. This could mean that Ukraine may have to concede significantly. Additionally, experts believe that the future occupant of the White House could be courted by Vladimir Putin and suggest that Trump might agree to unfavorable conditions for Ukraine, such as the establishment of a large demilitarized zone, restrictions on the military, and Kyiv not joining NATO, similar to the conditions that Germany had to accept after World War II. Others believe that the Russian leader may be willing to concede more than he has previously stated, such as withdrawing from the territories he has occupied. However, Vladimir Putin will still consider the Crimean Peninsula and the Azov Sea region as a red line. The enthusiasm of Donald Trump, the persistence of Vladimir Putin, as well as the boiling situation in Ukraine create an ideal scenario for the parties to forge an agreement that is not favorable for Kiev. In addition, Russia has had a relationship with Donald Trump long before he began his political career. The documentary, Trump's Strategy, states that KGB had seduced Trump since the 1980s. According to Bob Woodward's book, War, Trump and Putin have spoken on the phone 7 times since the billionaire left the White House in 2021. After Donald Trump survived an assassination attempt last July, the owner of the Killen estate praised the billionaire's courage. According to American media, Donald Trump immediately picked up the phone to talk to Vladimir Putin. Meanwhile, the Weekly Express quoted Estonian Foreign Minister Margus Tsahkna encouraging Nordic and Baltic countries to be prepared to send troops to Ukraine to maintain stability and order, in the event that the ceasefire agreement is reached earlier than expected. He still asserts that joining NATO is the best security guarantee for Ukraine, while waiting for the Nordic countries and the Baltic states to prepare for all scenarios in the healthcare sector. Poland has expressed interest in advancements in treatment methods for Down syndrome, Parkinson's, and Alzheimer's. The pharmaceutical company Alice Pharma in Bordeaux has announced a global breakthrough. The experimental drug ARFO-217 has shown positive effects on cognitive and behavioral issues related to Down syndrome after a trial involving 29 adults aged 18 to 35, with no dangerous side effects reported. This medication helps patients with significant abdominal issues, especially in communication and social interaction. ARFO-217 has also shown improvement in cognitive flexibility, meaning better problem-solving abilities. Analyses indicate that the brain experiences less strain regarding memory tasks. Trials have been conducted in Spain, and Alice FMA plans to expand testing in 2025 with more patients in other European countries. ARFO-217 affects CB1 receptors, helping to regulate various functions in the body, such as memory and mood, without disrupting their normal activity. Individuals with Down syndrome may not be the only patients benefiting from this new treatment method. Alice FMA has collected data showing the effectiveness of ARFO-217 for cognitive disorders or age-related disorders, such as in the early stages of Alzheimer's disease. Currently, the Food and Drug Administration is conducting preclinical studies to identify new effects, such as on cognitive disorders in Parkinson's disease or schizophrenia.